We've got a lot of different people in the audience today, from a whole range of organizations and industries, and from across 7 countries, including government authorities, councils, contractors, manufacturers, and the industries are a very broad range. Road and asphalt, rail, utilities, telecommunications, landscaping, and aviation. 89% of you are contractors, and of the government organisations represented here, many need to bid competitively to win work. So let's take a look at winning bids with better estimating. And what does better estimating actually mean? What is important about good estimating? Good estimating will give you a good idea of your costs. Better estimating will give you a better idea. When you have a good idea of your costs, you have better control of your submission price and the margin that you are attempting to make. You may have a good idea of market rates and the rates that will give you a chance of winning the bid. However, if you do not have a good idea of your costs, you do not have a good idea of the profit you are likely to make, if any. In this scenario, it would be difficult to monitor a project to see if it were on track. And you may not identify if you are making money until it is too late to take corrective action. So knowing your costs gives you the ability to bid on winning projects that will actually make you money. It also flows on into facilitating your project management, your scheduling, and generally enables you to run the project in a much more efficient and better manner. Now, there are a few different types of estimates. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here on budget estimates or early stage estimates, just to mention them a little, because most of you clearly are bidding on hard dollar estimates, where you need to come up with your final quote, so a competitive tendering situation. And it's at that stage where the owner, if you like, puts out a tender for construction, and you as contractors need to bid on that and really understand your costs. So the early stage projects or estimates that I mentioned are the sorts of things that are used by roads authorities to inform their forward planning. Sometimes a 10-year strategic plan, right down to what's going to be done over the next couple of years, and then finally down to the construction stage. And even for government organisations who are doing the construction themselves, a lot of the estimating required is quite similar to those of you who are contractors who need to be able to make some money out of the project. I just want to briefly mention a couple of different methods of estimating. Unit rate estimating versus first principles, or what we would term resource-based estimating. And both have their place. Again, for a lot of government organisations in early stage estimates, they will use unit rate estimating based on a history of rates. Even if you're a contractor and you are using subcontractors for elements of the job, it's important for you to have an idea of the sort of unit rate that you would have for an item, a piece of work. But in order to really understand your costs, you want to break down the estimate as far as possible into what we would call a first principles estimate, and that's really where I'm going to spend most of the time, because it enables you to really understand what your costs are, where there could be problems in the project. So let's take a look at some of the key factors for better estimating. One of the things that you want to do is to use as much of the information about a project as you have available. The old adage, you don't know what you don't know until you've been out on site. Site visits are extremely important. Getting information from anyone who knows the area where the job is going to be conducted is really valuable. Because if you don't allow for everything in your project or you miss bits, then that's where you start to bring more risk into your price. Obviously, estimate to the appropriate level of detail. That's referring to the stage of the project. And what that actually means is that in early stage projects, obviously, for the budget purposes, you will have much higher contingencies because you haven't allowed for the level of detail that is actually going to be there when you come to deliver the job. When you're doing a hard dollar bid and you really do know what the detail of the job you're constructing, then it's easy for you, or much easier for you, to identify some of the key cost drivers. What are the resources that make up the biggest costs on the job? The areas where you can negotiate better prices with your suppliers, for example. So going to the finer level of detail that you can will have a really big impact on enabling you to understand both your costs and your margin. Some of the common problems that we hear about from the clients we deal with, people generally out there in the estimating community, are that they've put together an estimate but then find when they come to deliver it, they actually haven't covered the full scope. So taking the time to really understand the contract documents, what's in and what's out, taking the time to make sure that the conditions that you include with your estimate is extremely important. It can make the difference between what's actually going to be profit for you or cost. Making sure that your estimate and your construction methodology is in line with the relevant specifications, regulations, and of course a huge cost these days, and it just gets bigger and bigger, is the OH&S requirements. Also looking, have you actually covered all the overheads that are important, both on-site overheads and off-site overheads? Have you allowed for establishment and disestablishment? Is there some piece of specialized equipment or labor that you need to allow for? Is there an element in one location on the project that actually has an impact on other parts of the project? Equipment that has to be re-established or moved from one place to another. Going into that level of detail is extremely important. Now, one of the obviously common methods of estimating that people use is spreadsheets. Spreadsheets have a lot of advantages. I know most of our, here at Benchmark, I guess I'd say most of the people who come to Benchmark have come from using spreadsheets. They enable you to do all sorts of complex calculations, but unfortunately they also have pitfalls. Some of the common pitfalls associated with spreadsheets are version control. You end up with various different versions of a spreadsheet distributed among an estimating team perhaps, which is the current one. Have they all been kept up to date? Are the resource rates up to date in each of the spreadsheets? Are there different rates for the same resource in different instances? Does the spreadsheet really have all the detail you need? And if not, where would you get it from? And then there's problems like corrupted functionality. I won't go into the detail, but I do remember sitting down with one of our clients, working over an estimate with them, and looking at some earthworks. I should say this client is both still going, and they're not attending this meeting. But I found an error just in a few calculations, that meant that the earthworks, instead of being $5 million as they had quoted and recently won on that project, should have been about $6.5 million. And I'm sure you've all got similar stories. And that, of course, leads to how accurate is the total in a spreadsheet. It's very hard to be sure that you've actually got it right. And of course, particularly if you're a larger public organization and there's a need for auditing, then again, it's very hard to do that with spreadsheets. So we obviously would recommend estimating software, and you can guess which piece of estimating software we would like to see you using. And I know a lot of you in the audience today are and have been for quite some time. The idea of a good piece of estimating software is to build a good library using items that go down to a full first principles estimate. And I'm just briefly here going to, if you'll bear with me for a second, show you two examples of an item. So this is for some reinforced concrete pipe, and they both have a similar rate here, similar cost, same description. If I go into this first item, it is a first principled estimate, broken down into a fine level of detail with variables, enabling you to adjust the quantities very quickly, very easily, adjust your production rates for each component of the pipe laying process in this case. So that's an example of a first principles estimate. The second one is the unit rate example. In other words, it just has one resource that gives you a price, and clearly you don't know the detail. You can't from that use that item to give you any idea of how you're really going to handle that job, or knowing whether everything has been added or not. So clearly building a good item library is a big part of enabling you to get the benefits out of best practice estimating and making sure the detail is covered. That also gives you much, much better accuracy. Incidentally, even for early stage estimates, a lot more government organizations are taking the time to do first principles estimating so that they can actually compare the kind of rates that they get quoted with what they think it should be. Having that level of detail makes it very easy to audit and to review. For example, in Benchmark we have quite a number of reports that enable you to see what's been changed. So you may bring an item in from the library, your estimator has made some changes, and it's very easy to quickly see which items have been changed so that you can review that. Estimating software gives you the power of a central database, and this actually means that all the data is very much the company's data, if you like. Estimating software is what could be called a knowledge management tool, enabling you as a company to own and use and leverage all that knowledge and data, whereas when it's spread out across spreadsheets, it tends to be very devolved, not something you can easily use. Far better reporting is available out of estimating software because it's in a consistent format and enables you to build reports, and in fact quite a number of the reports in our software, for example, have come from specific requests from a number of you as users. And it also enables you to really understand risk on a project when you go down to a fine level of detail, when you make sure everything is covered. You can actually see where the risks lie and start to take action to mitigate those risks. Using resource-based estimates, you can then very accurately, where there are changes, estimate the variations that will inevitably come up. So what does actually a good estimate give you? We believe it gives you a good return on your investment, and there's obviously with estimating software an investment both in terms of time and also in terms of money. It does take you time to set up an estimating package, but it will pay you back many, many times. You'll be much more efficient in the way, the speed with which you can put together quotes, so that enables you to bid on more work and so win more jobs. Having that detailed understanding of what's gone into a project and what your costs really are really enables you to understand when you're looking at your margin how close to the bone you can go if that's what you want to do, or how much profit you can make, enabling you, as you start to win more work, to actually increase your margins. Presentation is something that is also really important in terms of winning bids. And again, good estimating software, such as Benchmark, will give you powerful tools like word quote templates and so forth that enable you to make extremely good-looking proposals, and making sure that you've got the time, because you can estimate more efficiently, the time to actually differentiate your bid by paying attention to what the client really needs and showing them that you can actually deliver that. Other, I think, important benefits that you get out of estimating software are the ability to integrate with other software. We, for example, integrate with various quantity takeoff packages such as on-screen takeoff, scheduling software such as Microsoft Project, job costing software, and also client-designed in-house systems. We have built for a number of clients integrations with other systems so that your estimating can actually be a part of your overall business process. Thank you all for your time, and look forward to talking to you all again at some other time.